That was
That
okay
was
with
none of
you?
my business, woman. I'm a convict. I'm an outlaw. I'm a rebel. I'm not a Sunday school teacher.
Think about the strangest people in your life. Now, set them aside because Charles Manson is going to top that list. In this video, we're talking about one of the most intriguing and dark characters ever, Charles Manson, and how he managed to influence thousands of people. So, who is Manson and why is he so infamous? Charles Manson was born in Ohio in 1934. His life was filled with chaos and uncertainty from the start. His mother, Kathleen Maddox, was just 16 years old when she had Charles. Kathleen's life was far from stable. She frequently struggled with alcohol and was involved in various crimes. When Manson was still a young child, his mother was involved in a series of armed robberies and spent some time in prison. If there were a contest for the worst childhood story you've ever heard, Charles Manson's story would certainly win. Manson spent his childhood in various foster homes and with relatives. He never had a permanent home and turned to crime at a young age. When he committed his first crime at the age of 9, it was clear that he was headed for a troubled future. During his school years, he frequently got into fights and had problems with his teachers. Sure, kids can be mischievous, but Manson took it to a whole new level. In the 1950s, as a young adult, Manson was in and out of prison for various petty crimes. While in prison, he immersed himself in music and books, even learning to play the guitar. But what fascinated him the most was Dale Carnegie's book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. Manson would later use the manipulation techniques he learned from this book for his own dark purposes. Who would have thought that reading a book could have such dangerous outcomes? By the late 1960s, Manson began to gather young people around him with his unique charisma. This group, known as the Manson family, lived together and followed an alternative lifestyle. Imagine this, while the hippies were chasing peace and love, Manson and his group were writing a completely different story. Manson's charismatic personality and leadership skills led the group to follow him faithfully. When everyone asked why, Manson said why not, and guided his community. Yes, this is where things start to get really scary, don't you think? The psychological methods Manson used seemed straight out of a devil's handbook. He gained people's trust by offering them hope and love during their weakest moments. Think about it, if someone told you every day that you were amazing, wouldn't you start to believe them after a while? Manson was a master of manipulation. One of his methods was isolating his followers and continuously instilling his ideas into them. He was so skillful at this that people began to believe he was a prophet. Just think, if an ordinary man told you, "I am God's messenger," would you believe him? But Manson pulled it off. He had such a strong influence over his followers that they felt compelled to do whatever he said. To convince them to commit crimes, Manson kept them constantly on edge and in fear. He told terrifying stories and prophesied that the apocalypse was near. If that wasn't enough, he even used music as a tool. He interpreted the Beatles' song Helter Skelter as a call for revolution and convinced his followers of this. I bet if the Beatles found out about this, they'd cry, but from laughter. On a hot summer night in 1969, Manson's followers brutally murdered actress Sharon Tate and her friends in Los Angeles. This event shocked not only Hollywood but the entire world. Following the murders, the police launched an intense investigation to uncover the mystery behind these horrific crimes. It truly was the kind of mystery that made people say, "What's happening in Hollywood?" As the murders came to light, the media couldn't get enough of the story. Manson and his followers quickly became the most talked about names in America. This situation once again proved the media's prowess in creating sensation. Whoever said there's no such thing as bad publicity must have been thinking of Manson and his crew. Following the murders, things quickly went downhill for Manson and his family. Thanks to the confessions of followers and the evidence gathered, Manson was swiftly apprehended. As justice began to take its course, society breathed a sigh of relief, but the horror they had experienced was never forgotten. The capture of Manson and his followers played out like a Hollywood movie. The police pieced together the evidence and the followers' statements to quickly catch Manson and his accomplices. Interestingly, even at the moment of his arrest, Manson continued to instill fear around him. Even when captured, he maintained his cold-blooded stare. When the trial began, America watched the case with bated breath. Manson's behavior during the trials once again showcased how manipulative and charismatic he was. But this time, justice prevailed. Manson and his accomplices were sentenced to life in prison. "You reap what you sow" fits perfectly here. In the end, Manson and his followers received life sentences. This decision reinforced society's faith in justice. But it also served as a reminder to be more cautious of charismatic and dangerous individuals. Yes, bad guys don't always win. The crimes committed by Manson and his family left deep scars on society. These events not only impacted the legal system but also changed people's sense of security. People became more cautious, even with their neighbors. The saying "good fences make good neighbors" took on a whole new meaning thanks to Manson. The Manson case led to significant changes in both the legal system and the field of psychology. Psychologists began to study manipulative personality disorders more intensively. Lawmakers introduced new laws to prevent similar incidents from happening again. So, in a way, Manson inadvertently triggered some positive changes. Manson's dark legacy left a profound impact on future cult leaders. His methods were studied and emulated by other dangerous leaders. However, society became more aware and cautious of people like Manson. "Where there's smoke, there's fire," they say, but now people are better at detecting the smoke earlier. Charles Manson's story is a striking example of how a charismatic and manipulative person can use others for their own purposes. Manson revealed the dark side of society while also highlighting the importance of justice. Manson's influence and legacy will not be forgotten, even after many years. This story reminds us not only of a past horror but also of the lessons we need to learn to prevent such events from happening again. Remember, instead of falling under the influence of charismatic leaders, always stay critical and questioning. If you enjoy videos like this, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and like our video. See you in future videos.